Welcome to today's episode. I have Chief Richbourg from Springdale PD in South Carolina today. His nickname is Bear, which I want to get into this a little bit because sometimes people call him Chief Bear, so maybe we'll have to start calling him Chief Bear instead. But he has a total of 20 years experience in law enforcement. Started in corrections, started as chief of police in 2019. Has three children and one grandson. Welcome to the show, Chief
Hey,
Bear.
appreciate having me.
How's it going today? Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. There were a couple things in your bio that I was like, that's really cool. It's really interesting. I appreciated that you interjected some personality into it and some personal notes into it, because that I think gave me an insight into who you are behind the title of what you do. And I know we have a lot of conversations about humanizing the badge. And so I thought that that was a really human thing for you to be like, people call me Bear, and then it opened up conversation for us to talk offline and kind of see, where that came from. And you said that you've had that since you were a little kid.
Yeah, my mom doomed me with that. She started calling me that when I was little, and it stuck. And I don't. So I'm going on 26 years of marriage, and I don't think my wife's ever called me by my real name. So
Really?
it's very. That's my name. So
Yeah, I love
I'm,
that.
as a granddad, so far I'm Pa Bear. So I think it's gonna keep going.
I love that. I actually go by my middle name. So Paige is my middle name. And every once in a while, like I'll be in a situation where I have to like put down my first legal name. And it's so weird when people call you a name that you're not used to. And my Uber is under my legal name because we had to like, sign up for everything. And so I had gotten an Uber with like family members one time and they're like, is this for Jessica? Because my first name is Jessica. And everyone was like, who's Jessica? And the Uber driver was so thrown off. They're like, wait, do I have the wrong rider? And I'm like, no, it's me. But like, no one knows me by my first name. It's my middle name. So I can relate to like it feeling kind of weird when someone calls you by your like quote unquote real name when you're so
Yeah,
used to something else.
yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I asked you, I was like, do people call you Chief Bear? And you're like, sometimes.
yeah.
So you started in corrections, and from my understanding, that's a really hard position. But when we talked, you said that it really helped to prepare you. So what was your experience with that?
Oh yeah. So I always knew I wanted to be in law enforcement, and um, at that time the uh, climate was a little bit different. So it was a little harder to get in law enforcement, and so I didn't have a 4-year degree or any experience. So that's kind of just a starting point, and worked out good in my favor as far as communication,
Hmm.
dealing with people, um, so many different personalities, and in the jail system, and all you have is all you have in there is your communication. So uh, learned a lot. I was 21, just turned 21, so grew up a lot and learned a lot. Uh, it's very helpful, but in my future career.
I was thinking that that was the first thing I thought is that you have to have an incredible amount of communication skills and you have to be effective. And my first thought is it's like your first form of de-escalation. Is that what you feel like too? Like you were able to kind of hone in your communication skills for de-escalation. And then did that translate once you entered into the PD environment and you're out on the streets? Do you feel like that translated?
I think it helped, not just that, like my whole life, like learning to talk to people.
Mm,
We're in a society now where communication almost has to be taught. We're in a tech world of younger. I have the kids. I have three of my own, and so the tech world of communication that we get now, the younger generation that we're hiring, it, they could text you from across the room, but can't always start a conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like um, through the jail helped me in policing, helped me. And then once I got into investigations, uh, there were some older investigators that had way longer career than me that taught me. And that was the biggest thing is communication. That's one of the most important qualities in a law enforcement officer is communication, whether it's uh, dealing with somebody that uh, is a victim, is a criminal, it's just a traffic stop, whatever the case may be, communication is a huge,
Yeah.
important aspect of what we have to do every day. So I think that helped me further my further my career and throughout. So
I agree. I think it's really interesting. I'm noticing that there's almost a fear in communication, where the younger people are almost like it's like they like deer in headlights, like don't know what to do. And I think you're right. It's just a different upbringing. It's a different time. When we were kids, we didn't have any of that. We were running around, getting dirty, like connecting with each other, communicating with each other. And now it's all online. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, how training develops over time with technology being so prevalent. Is there going to be more of a focus on how to interact with people, how to communicate with people, even at an academy setting? I think it'll be really interesting to start to see that because it's a human game. We're all I obviously have a different career than you do, but I deal with humans every day. I have to be able to communicate on a consistent basis in an effective way. Same with you. You're dealing with humans. You're out and you're dealing with the community, and so there has to be that level of understanding and training. So I think it's really interesting to see how things evolve over time with the use of technology. But I'm with you. Like I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I kind of got thrown in the fire and kind of forced to talk to people because now, today, like we're thankful for that. And obviously it's a skill that you have to have as a chief of police and as leadership as well. And you started in 2019. And the first thing I thought of when I saw 2019 was, ooh, like that's a tough time to start.
I'm not too far.
Yeah, like we all know what happened right around that time. So what was that like? Brand new position, one of the arguably hardest times in, modern day society to maybe start that position. What was that like for you?
So it was different. There was a lot of unease throughout the nation with the incidents nationally that affect even small town us.
Hmm.
Uh, and then riddled on top of that, COVID started. So it was a very interesting time. Um, but not forgetting, I guess, not forgetting your why. It
Hmm.
really doesn't matter if uh, somebody on Facebook says how much they hate the police or how much they dislike us or distrust us or whatever. I'm still coming. We're still coming. If you ever need us, we're still going to come. And I told several people uh, and I think that's how you kind of build. We're fortunate to live in a town that supports police. So, to work here versus a big city, uh, I was fortunate in that aspect. So we didn't see a lot here locally in our town. We had a good uh, rapport with our community uh, and good relations, but it was a trying time. And then on top of that, trying to fill openings uh, with an 11-man department. we had a couple out when I first started, but it was four of us running the whole thing. So it was difficult. The recruiting became difficult. That's where a big turn, and you'll hear a lot of people talking about recruit and retention in leadership classes. That was a huge turn. People, why do I want to get paid so little to have to deal with what you're dealing with? And it's definitely not for the money. You got it's got to be a want, something that you really want to do. And if it is about the money, you don't need to be in that law enforcement anyway. And I think that was a turning point in seeing, unfortunately, uh, you saw qualifications kind of be laxed during that time because there were agencies that were hurting so bad that it's almost like they wanted a warm body to fill positions, and that's not what law enforcement is about. So I was fortunate in a small agency where we didn't see that as much. We're able to alleviate to not have to deal with that. So
Yeah.
that part was good, but dealing with the constant negativity and trying to keep everybody positive um, because there was so many opinions, so many uh, judgments out there on us, and people didn't even know us.
Yeah.
They don't know who I am, but just because I got a badge on, they immediately didn't like us.
Right.
And it was uh, turn that around. And to be honest, law enforcement uh, is partially responsible for that. We did that to ourselves, uh, whether it be, and a big part is communication,
Mm.
communicating with the community. And I can't say that I do the best job of that. I'm terrible at posting on Facebook. I try, but as far as the department wise goes, but keeping the community uh, knowledgeable and informed about what we're doing, I think um, helps in our relationship. Um, but yeah, that was definitely a trying time. Still recovering as law enforcement as a whole.
Yeah.
Numbers are way down.
I would agree with that. I really appreciated that you said stay connected to the why. And I do think that it is such a powerful thing that can get you through the really hard times and the times of burnout. Everyone's going to have that, and I've definitely experienced that sometimes too, where I'm like, am I even making a difference? Am I like, what am I doing? I've definitely had like times of self doubt, and to stay grounded in that, like, no, there's a deeper reason why I'm here, and I'm going to keep showing up and do the best job that I possibly can because of my why is so strong. And I think that it's really important for everyone to have some sort of why, whether that's a professional why, or maybe the why is like you are doing this for your family or you're doing this for XYZ, but having some sort of why, and then reconnecting or reassessing over time. Because I think the why can change sometimes, or maybe, life starts to happen, and things kind of evolve over time. But one of the things that I had another chief say that I thought was kind of a cool idea, they said to write down your why and have it somewhere where you can check back on it. And I think the example was like the locker. It's like every time you open up your locker, you see your why right there, and it's a reinforcement that, like, no matter how hard things are, and like maybe you feel like people don't appreciate you and the work that you're doing, this is why we keep showing up. And I think that's such an easy thing that anyone can do, is put it somewhere that you're going to see
Right.
it. Maybe it's in your car, like what are those things, the visors?
Advisor.
Or in your locker, so you're reminded on a consistent basis why you're there. I think that's a really strong thing to say. You and I don't remember if you said this or not, but did you always want to be chief? Was that the goal? You said you always wanted to be in law enforcement, but were you like, this is where I want to be one day. I want to be chief of police.
Not necessarily cheap. Um, uh, always wanted to be in law enforcement since I was little. I'm not sure how young uh, that started, but what really sticks out in my mind, uh, I was 10 when my father's uncle was murdered in our town. Matter of fact, his farm butts up to ours, live on a small family farm. And I can still remember it was a Saturday. There was no cell phone, so the house phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was another relative informing us what happened, which his house from the house that I grew up in is, as the crow flies, 100 yards. So it's close, hit close to home. My mother, knowing my interest in law enforcement and the trying to support the family members, we went through the whole judicial process. Uh, and I sat through that court, and that's what ultimately led me to wanting to get in law enforcement. And my original goal, was to work in major crimes, to work those type of cases. And I was able to do that for about a little 4 years before I came over here to Springdale.
Um, I find it to be really fascinating how a a lot of the hardest things that we go through in our lives become motivators to try to do better, try to help others. That was something that happened when you were so young, but it became a life defining moment that now got you to where you are today. So, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I know that, you do a lot of work within the community, you volunteer, you coach sports. Do you think that by doing what you do in the community that you also have the ability to inspire the younger or like the future generation to also want to be in law enforcement? Because that was my thought when you were talking to me, was like, now you have the ability to inspire these younger kids to want to walk in your path.
Right. Yeah. So it started with being an involved parent. Is how my coaching started. Unfortunately, I saw very quickly that not all kids had that. Um, so I got involved, and then I saw the need for some of these. So I've coached football, rec football, middle school football, high school wrestling, softball. So the need for these kids to have extra parental guidance, almost per se, uh, it was a lot. There was a lot of kids like that. So once I got involved, I just fell in love with the ability to uh, have the potential to change these kids,
Mm.
maybe have some kind of influence that they would remember. Not necessarily getting in law enforcement. And I always said sports is very important, especially team sports. I've made, uh, and they get to pick which sport, but I've made all three of my kids playing team sports. And I think that's a huge part of becoming a good adult, good citizen is being on a team, and then learning how how to get along with others
Mhm.
and things like that. So uh, the feel like I hope I made some type of impact, with some of these kids. it's just refreshing. And then I did it volunteer. Some of it could have been paid, but I felt the need not only as a citizen in my community, but as a law enforcement officer to help. And that was a way that I could help. So I felt um, I wanted these kids to see me outside of the uniform, outside of the badge. So, and it helped because I'd go, my son played high school football. So, we went to the games and I'd see the kids I coached. And even when they see me in uniform, it was never officer or chief, whatever they call me by title. Uh, it was, hey, Coach Bear.
I was going to say that. I was like, I
So,
knew Coach Bear.
yeah, so that, and to me, that meant a lot to have that impact. That even if, you know, seeing me in uniform, I'm still a person. And they knew that's a person. So I think it helps with relations with uh, kids that might not typically have a good attitude towards police, that didn't come from the best situation. Some kids are dealt terrible hands, and it's a shame. And a lot of that could be all kind of circumstances, but most circumstances that I see is the parental side, that they don't have the strong support at home. And I was hoping that at least when they were with us, they had that support. And it's not always easy. It's not always lovey-dovey. Sometimes it's hard love, being
Yeah.
hard on them in practice and stuff like that. Just showing them the all the aspects and importance of, hopefully most kids are not going to be collegiate athletes, but all kids are going to be adults in our society. So that in coaching was more important than teaching them. Now, I'm very competitive at everything we do, but the most important thing was that they grew up to be good adults. And a lot of them I still keep in touch.
Yeah.
So it's
That's,
really nice. It's refreshing to see that side of coaching.
and I think, for me, that speaks like really near and dear to my heart. I wasn't dealt a great hand when I was a kid. I didn't really have positive mentorship in my life. And I made a lot of poor decisions because of that. And so I think that for you to show these kids that, hey, there are other adults here that care about you, that are rooting for you, that are showing you that you have the capability to do good things and that you can choose a different path for yourself, I think is so powerful. And sometimes that's all you need as a kid, is to have one person believe in you and tell you that you can do something great and that you can be better than what your reality might be. And for me, like, I remember my family just being like, oh, like, she's the daughter of so and so, like, lost cause, and even up until recently, I remember like a family member being like, yeah, you should just be so proud with, where you are, because we never expected you to be anything anyway. That was always like what was given to me in my home life and like my, family life. I did have a stepdad that raised me as a single dad, and he was awesome. He did his best to give me a great life, but there were other aspects, that were really difficult. And it would have felt really good to have someone in my corner that was like, hey, don't listen to them. Like, I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to show you that you can get out of this situation and you can be better. And I was talking to, and I'm curious on your opinion on this, but I was talking to another chief, and they were talking about the school to prison pipeline and how they were trying to really engage with kids at a young age and do exactly what you said, like show them the human behind it, show them that there are adults that care, in hopes that they can set them on a different trajectory that'll keep them out of the prison system. Because we know that, if you're are dealt a hard hand, that a lot of those kids will make similar decisions or start making poor decisions and enter into a life of crime. And so I think that what you're doing not only inspires kids to walk a different path, but it also might inspire them to one day be in law enforcement, and hopefully not end up in the prison system, based on their situation.
Right.
You,
I feel like there's hope for, you can't save everyone, but I feel like there's hope.
I think it's one at a time. I think that it's worthwhile if you have one kid come up to you and be like, man, like you changed my life, like you helped me to see something better. I think that obviously, like, all of us want to help as many people as possible. I think we share that same why, and we want to have a really big, long lasting impact on everybody. But I think we have to remind ourselves that one is worthwhile. Strive for as many as you can, but one is worthwhile, and that means something. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing in the community. I think that's great. Um, what is your leadership style? You told me that you kind of take a similar approach. So what is your style within the organization?
I've always been leadership, so I was more coaching.
Hmm.
I think it kind of all works together. Um, I've been fortunate to work at a large agency and now a small agency. So larger agency, even in corrections, you have good and bad supervisors, leadership within the organization, and you see what the bad is and what you don't want to be. You see what the good is, and you got to pick pieces of those to become what you are. But I think the coaching, me coaching, and then being a leader in law enforcement kind of work hand in hand. It's not, uh, this is definitely not a dictatorship. Um, this is somebody with, I'm on year 20 total, somebody with 3 or 4 years of experience could come in and tell me something. It's a great idea. But just because I didn't come up with it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And we see that sometimes with egos and different things, but like to try to get input, but coach them to make them better officers, future leaders within a law enforcement organization. Might not be here, but they go somewhere else. My goal is to wherever they go, wow, this guy's a rock star, this girl's a rock star. We and that they were trained well and coached up and uh, able to be a great law enforcement officer and great leader one day, hopefully.
Yeah.
Whoever takes my place, hopefully, my goal is to be within the organization and they do a better job than I do. So,
100%. I've said this before. I couldn't agree more. I think I do think it's a competitive, any organization where there's upward movement is going to be competitive, and you almost have to feel like you have to beat people out to get certain positions. Like, I understand that, but I agree with you. I want to elevate my team so that they're better than me. I want, like, one day, like, if I step away, that they're better than me. And I think that when you can train people to be better than you had a role in their success, and you should want the people within your organization to be successful. And I think it is hard. I think maybe that comes with maturity over time, where you realize it's not a zero sum game. Just because someone else has a good idea or a better idea, just because someone maybe got an advancement over you, doesn't mean that you are any less qualified or any less successful. I think that sometimes we think it's like a win or a lose type situation, But really it should be that we want everyone to win. Like
Right.
that's the environment. Like we're all helping each other, and it's maybe a sports analogy, but you're only as strong as your weakest player. So like how can we help to bring everybody up for the betterment and the success of the team? And so it's not a zero sum game. And I would argue that, like, okay, so I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So someone told me one time, they said, watch out. There's always someone younger and hungrier, like coming up behind you. Right. And I want that. I think people are afraid of that. They're like, oh no, someone's going to come take my job. That motivates me because I want to be the best version of myself too. And I want everyone else to be the best versions of themselves. But like, I need a little bit of fire, behind me too. And I think that when you get younger people or people who are really hungry or have different perspectives, it helps you to also challenge yourself and to grow and to learn and to elevate yourself, even if you are at the top of an organization. So I think that that should be encouraged, that there's someone younger and hungrier, and it's really for the betterment of everybody.
Right. And as no matter what title I've had within law enforcement or rank, that my goal is that I haven't changed. My responsibilities have changed, decision making, views and perspective. Your perspective changes as you climb the ladder and see it from a larger umbrella. But me as a person, I hope that that I haven't changed as I'm raised in the rank. That's a big goal of mine.
How did you accomplish that? Was there anything specific that you did to kind of check
Um,
yourself and make sure that you were still
I think
authentically you?
I think one thing would be seeing how possibly how other people did it,
Mm.
and how I didn't want to do it, how it negatively affected. Um, and I think that I was I'm fortunate in the way that I was raised. Totally like your situation, my situation, total opposite. I can't sit here and say that I was not fortunate. My parents are still married. It feels like 100 years. It hasn't been that long. But uh, raised me and my brother. My parents had 7 foster kids that we grew up with. So they taught us at a young. So every time we had a foster kid, me and my brother, he's older, we'd have to bunk in a room together. Uh, so it was inconvenient for us. We didn't want to do that, but I think that was the start. That was probably my start of wanting to help people is
Mm.
seeing my parents do that. My dad worked at the post office. My mom was a school teacher. They were not, uh, and I'm not saying we were poor. My parents provided very well for us, but they were not rich in any means to be able to afford extra kids. And it was me and my brother. And now that I've had a son, I don't know how we were both teenagers at the same time. I don't know how they even fed us. Seeing that aspect, I think that helped me a lot was the work ethic, the responsibility to the community that my parents taught me at a young age. It I think that's where that really was probably my biggest help in framing who I am now.
I really like the idea of like remember where you came from. And it sounds to me like your parents taught you a lot of compassion and that that's carried you through your career, because it's incredibly compassionate to take in another kid, especially when maybe it's hard to make ends meet already, but you want to do good and they instilled that in you too. And so I like that idea of, remember where you came from and the good qualities and then use that to ground you. I know that we're buttoned up a little bit on time, but I did want to, ask you kind of a wellness question here. But From a wellness perspective, in the context of law enforcement, what do you think is maybe still the biggest challenge?
Um, I think it's a combination of, and it could be coincide with one another. Uh, Mental health and sleep is probably two of the biggest issues uh, with law enforcement. Now, mental health, there was always a stigma that if you ask for help, you're crazy or you're weak,
Mm.
uh, and they'll take my bag. Uh, and we've had incidents here, and I've put emails out and I've tried to talk to officers and relay to them, you need help, we're here, we provide it. There's organizations that we uh, utilize. We have a great state organization here in South Carolina, SC Leap, but we utilize them. Um, it's we want to encourage that. And what SC Leap is like a peer group when something tragic happens. Um, Generally, also involves shooting, dealing with a traumatic incident. Uh, we deal with a lot of traumatic incidents, but really traumatic of child being murdered or something like that. And the last one they did that involved our agency, I felt it important for me to be involved. So I went, I sat through the sessions. The command staff sessions are a little different than the other sessions, but I wanted to portray to them that me being there, that it's okay. You know, we all need help. We're not perfect. Uh, we're all Superman. So I think that helps in showing that it will command staff. Then it's okay to do it. So I think that's a big aspect, and I hope that uh, officers are able to see that it's okay to need help and to ask for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. And, I think the more we have conversations like this and we make it normal and we show that we're human and like, hey, like these things are really difficult and we can have really strong conversations. Again, I think two things can be true at once. It's like you can be strong and resilient and also need to talk to someone about something sometimes,
Mhm.
and also need resources. One doesn't have to negate the other. Like we can have these conversations and understand that everyone is human, and seeing the things that you guys see is tough, and it should be tough. And if you want to stay connected to who you are, you can't allow yourself to become so hardened by that. And I think you have to allow yourself to be human and to understand that like you're going to and you should need resources after seeing some of the things that you guys see, and what are the things that work best for you. And I think when we think about wellness, it's so multifaceted. There's so many different kinds of wellness. There's so many different resources. It doesn't have to be one singular thing. And I think if we continue to have conversations like this, it'll make it more normal and more accepted. I just think it'll take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think we're moving in a good direction than a decade or two ago. But I think that part, that aspect, we're headed in the right direction.
I agree. What words of wisdom would you share with the younger generation that are coming into this profession today?
So um, we're a small agency, so I don't send a lot of people to the academy. We have a state academy that everybody has to go to. So the one thing I tell them when they graduate, which is kind of opposite of what some people may portray to new officers, is I make them look at their family members that are in attendance for their swearing in and remember that they're more important than this job. I love my job. Fortunate to work somewhere and do something that I love, but I'm not always going to have this job. And for me, so I got married very young, 20, she was 18, still married, we're coming up on year 26. And so I wasn't a police officer when we were first together. So she's rode that with me. And I was not always a good husband, spouse, whatever your situation is. I was terrible, and there were spells that I'm fortunate. Uh, I guess I married a saint because she stuck with it. But I guess the biggest thing I would tell a young officer is remember your faith first, your family, and then your job, your career. So whatever faith you have, I put a lot of trust in God and planning for what's after this earth. But and then next, my family, making sure, and I didn't always do that. I didn't always put them first. I worked. Uh, I sign up for any kind of work. It was more important for me to make a couple extra dollars than be home with my family. And then when I went to major crimes, what really hurt was seeing Betty go to every death, seeing so much bad, and then coming home and not connecting with my family, especially my wife. Uh, her explaining to me something that she has an issue with. For example, my son didn't take out the trash. And my response would be, I just saw a 3-year-old get shot. I just saw a guy take his own life. I just saw a guy take his last breath. That's not important. Well, it was important to her. And I didn't take that into account. So I think your relationships outside of this profession are so important. And uh, I think I'm better in a better place now with, I don't know, we won't ask her opinion. I think I'm better now than I was, but um, I think that your whole family, spouse, significant other, your extended family, my kids have, as they've gotten older, have noticed a difference. Um, Matter of fact, when I came over here to a smaller town and left major crimes, which I love so dearly, and that's what I wanted to do my whole career. But that's a 24/7 responsibility that when something happens, you drop everything. I miss so many birthdays, so many things, and I realize that all officers do the same, and they will miss those. But I was signing up for stuff and doing things I didn't have to necessarily do. But uh, once I came over here and started working less, my parents, my kids were like, "Dad, you're home a lot more." And then that's when it kind of hit me like, "Wow, yeah, I, I can't get back my kids' birthdays. They'll never be, if I missed it, I missed it. I can't get back their Christmases or whatever." Um, but there are ways that we ended up celebrating and doing things out around my schedule. Sometimes we couldn't. And that's going to be the case with even patrol officers because we can't always be home. We're 24/7, 365. We're always there when people need us. So we have to be out there. So you're going to miss things like that. But uh, building relationships with family, that's my biggest thing. If I could go back, like if I was talking to my 21-year self when I first got into law enforcement, that's what I would tell myself is don't lose focus on what you had before you started this career and what you'll have after this career is my family. And I didn't always uh, see them. I guess I didn't recognize that importance through the bulk of my career, and I do now. And but that's what I would tell a younger officer or a younger me is focus on what you have outside of this career.
Thank you.
And we see things. Unfortunately, we see things that the community doesn't need to see. And then I was taking that home to, well, your stuff's not important because these people had a bad day. So I had to learn that. That was a lot for me to learn.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your words of wisdom. Thank you so much.